just this blank look. Do what? An oikos push. And I realized that it's something that we haven't really done in No Place Left, but it was actually done quite often in Scripture. I mean, when you look at those examples, those 14 examples, what do you see in terms of time frame of the oikos coming to faith? A lot of them, it's immediate. Okay, there's something that goes on when someone gets saved. There's a clock that starts ticking. Okay, and this ticking clock is going to determine what our generational rate looks like. And so, if our encouragement to the person who's coming to faith is Acts 2:39, this message is for you and for your children and all who are far off. Or Acts 11:14 to Cornelius, this message is for you and all of your household. If we're giving that message in our gospeling, it's much more likely we're going to start reaping oikoses than if our gospeling is, this message is for you. And then we help them start thinking through oikos, but it's sort of an add-on rather than the promise that God's giving them from the beginning. And so let me just share with you a couple of examples of an oikos push. And then I want us to we're going to look at about 8 of those examples. Because one thing I want you to do when you leave here today is to have in your mind sort of a menu of options of how the Holy Spirit actually saves an oikos. It's very easy for you to say, this is the way God works, and then you begin to pigeonhole the Holy Spirit. When actually, He did it quite a few ways in the Bible. And so what I found, it's a lot easier for me to hear the leading of the Holy Spirit and to follow His leading if all of this is in my mind. And then the Holy Spirit's like, yeah, remember page 3, option number 2? Oh yeah, when that happened with Lydia, this is how it happened. Or with Cornelius. Or with the jailer, it was different. Or with the gathering of the demoniac, it was that way. And the Holy Spirit's like, do you think this could be me operating in this situation this way now? So I want you to have that in your repertoire. But then we want to then figure out how can we go to our gin maps and begin doing some oikos pushes. Just like we would do a push into the harvest to find a person of peace. How do we win a whole house of peace? Let me give you 2 extreme examples. They're as opposite as they come. Both of them happened in Los Angeles. Both of them happened about 20 years ago when we were there. Our bread and butter was oikos. We would find persons of peace and then reap their oikos, find another person of peace, try to reap their oikos. That's the way things work. In fact, that's typically the way the kingdom runs, is we find this entry point person, that righteous person that's going to get saved, and then the gospel just saturates your oikos until we run out. You know, what do? We go find another one, right? And then we go find another. A lot of times we go find one, and then another, and we fail to do the oikos pushes to reap the oikos. So, one example, and you're going to like, if I had that situation, I'd have it just at church too. Well, we had a guy who was Chinese, Filipino American. His name was Les. Now, Les was in dental school at the University of Southern California. Is as American as they come, but was raised in the Philippines. Ethnically was Chinese. And his father had died, and he was the eldest son. And in his culture, the eldest son inherits all the wealth. And the Chinese are the rich business people of the Philippines. So he came to the U.S. to study. Now, when he got to the U.S., anyone that came from Manila to the U.S. for any reason, who do you think they looked up? Les. If they even knew Les's name, they would look him up and kind of claim him as godfather status. Like, oh, I know you. So they would kind of like come under his oikos of protection. So Les is this guy, he's, 25, 28, something like this at this time. He's married. And he might have been close to 30. But anyway, he told a guy in our church named James, he said, James, I'm thinking about getting a religion. I'm going to look at Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Christians and see which one's best. So James comes and tells me this. And I'm like, okay, we got to get to him first, you know? So James is like, what do I do? He said, well, let's see if we can't read a whole oikos. Because this one was a really obvious oikos. Now, it wasn't family. It's mainly all these friends that knew Les and had kind of come to LA and kind of congregated near his place. So I said to James, let's ask them to commit to 5 weeks to do a discovery study on Sunday nights. And what you're going to do is ask 6 questions. We're going to go from creation to Christ. First week will be Genesis, the creation. The next week will be the fall, and so on. And when we get to the rest, it's actually 6 weeks. When we get to the resurrection and burial, resurrection of Jesus, then we'll see what happens. So every week, Les would gather this whole clan together. 30 people. All gathered under one roof. There'd be a lot of food. And then after all the food, they would go into their discovery study. They start with the first one, Genesis 1 and 2. They'd ask 6 basic questions. What does this teach us about God, and so on. And we got to the 6th week. Now, James has been leading this study. They got to the 6th week, Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. And at the end of this study, they would always close in prayer, and Les or James, my friend, would ask them, is there anything that you want me to be praying for this week? Because God hears our prayers when we pray in the name of Jesus, and He'd pray for those needs. This week that didn't happen. They got to the end of the study, and Les turns to my friend James and says, James, I'd like for you to leave the room for a while. And James is like, what? Go in the kitchen and go get something to eat for a while. What do you mean? Just leave the room. So James is completely confused. He leaves the room. 15, 20 minutes later, he walks back in the room. 30 people sit in the room, and they're all just grinning from ear to ear. And Les turns to James and says, we're all Christians now. And James calls me up and is like, can they do that? You know? What had happened was Les, they got through the 6 weeks of study. It made sense. He starts going around the room. Laura, what do you think about this? Makes sense. Ryan, what do you think? Rebecca, they just went through, I like this Jesus guy. It seems it makes sense. Pay for our sins and all this. Okay, everybody here that wants to follow Jesus, raise your hand. The whole group. We reaped an oikos immediately. Now, if we had been smart, we would have started a church with them. Instead, we brought them into our church, which was okay. But we didn't know at the time. That was an example of an entire oikos hearing and believing at one time. Let me take you to the other extreme. Diane. Diane started coming to our church. She was a grad student, undergrad student at university. Started coming to our church. I have never in my life met anyone more introverted. Someone brought her in and introduced me to me and introduced her to me. Said, hi, this is Diane. I said, hey Diane, how you doing? You been studying here long? What are you studying? That's nice to meet you, Diane. That's it. That's all I got out of her. Week after week. I never heard Diane talk. Finally, someone was sharing the gospel with Diane, which is our normal protocol, and she got saved. So we're going to do an oikos push. The oikos push for us was, let's get her baptized as quick as we can. Let's get her whole oikos together at her baptism. Let's let her give a testimony. How are we going to do that with Diane? So we scheduled the day of the baptism, and to our utter astonishment, there's a huge crowd of people gathered around for her baptism. People that had never heard Diane talk got phone calls from her that week. Joe? Yes? This is Diane. Diane? Yes. I'm going to get baptized on Sunday. Can you come? And all the people showed up because they never heard Diane talk before. And at her baptism, she gives her testimony. I don't know what resulted from that, but there was an amazing push into her oikos from someone that was like as introverted as you could possibly get. Two extremes. One person gets saved and begins to reach out into her oikos, but she does it with the help of the body. Another one, where we gather the whole group together and they all get saved at one time. Which one's right? We see both of them in Scripture. Right? We see both of them in Scripture. So here's what I want us to do. We're going to take some time to look at this because I feel like when you look at these examples here, you're going to find that people got saved, and I mean specifically their oikos, in different ways. And if you don't have this in your menu of options, then you're going to tend to get stuck in your particular way of doing it. And you're going to miss the way the Holy Spirit's leading you when it's outside of that particular way of doing things, okay?